in the coaching many, that conversation of goals is a bit dynamic. There's layers to that. And so for me, what I really want to focus on is supporting our listeners to kind of look at this realm of coaching many, or the conversation of many, and take into consideration things that might be new to you, or things that maybe you're doing and maybe you're taking for granted, or maybe things that you're doing and you need to reevaluate. Because you know what, there is in the coaching many conversation, goal setting is one of the 4 focus areas.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Many podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Evana, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Many is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Many podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time. Well, welcome back, Evana. Great to see you, and you look really fresh today. What's different, might I ask?
Yeah, well, I had a milestone birthday, and I thought, you know what? It's a new decade. And so let's create some new intentionality, which was last episode. But how can we do that? So I went and, got a fresh cut, lightened my hair, brought back some blonde and some fun and play. Because you know what? I think whether we're at work, whether we're at home, whether with family, there's an important element of play that has to come in. So that's what's new in my little fresh world. And
I love that. I just love that. And I got to jump in because there's something that you said even beyond like decade, which is play. And I think the play piece is something that I'm hearing in my different travels, right? Even in the midst of change, turmoil, chaos, how do we find the spark and how do we find the lightness? So I love it. Well, today's topic is all about goals and how apropos. Again, happy belated birthday as you step into a new decade. And really, goals are a key part of the whole coaching process, right? Coaching, and actually, I think I shared this last time, but I found an old copy of Timothy Galloway's The Inner Game and took it with me on I'm just out of the 72-hour writing marathon. And, that's not just a goal, but it's part of this vision for me, for the business, in terms of continuing to expand my body of work. So we're going to talk today about goals. And as a listener, I'd like you to be thinking about, what are your goals on an individual, business, professional level? And how is that influencing the work that you do? How is it influencing how you're showing up for the conversations? Because a big piece of this is also, it's not just about the doing, it's about the being around goals. And as many of you know, 2019, I put a stake in the ground, right, for this business. As we stepped into 2020, set a pretty large intention and set a very big goal of serving 5 million professionals during the period of 2020 to 2029, end of 2029. And I thought that goal was really big, like 5 million people. Now, here's the thing. As some of you may or may not know, that's when I added onto the water drop the Spiral Lighthouse to represent being a beacon of trust, safety, and connection, and a space for people to come and have the conversations that matter, whether they're playful, whether they're serious, whether it's all about coaching, business development, or leadership. And so it's been really interesting as we step now into the middle of 2024 to look at how far we've gone, because we don't just work with coaches, right? We work with leaders, we work with business owners, we work with creatives. And one of the pieces that is still very much a reason why many of you come to us is our piece around remote work, which little did I know when I put this stake in the ground in late 2019, how much impact and connectivity we'd have, especially 2020 to 2023 with organizations around the world on remote work. So part of that is goal setting. Part of it is intentionality. Like, what is important for you today as we step into this episode?
Yeah, and I'll get there, but I actually want to also highlight something, because I know a lot of the people who come through our programs really know you, like when we even do some of the conversations in terms of how to have that reach, and I do that from a reflective of how did you hear about us? And this is the thing, you had that beautiful vision of 5 million people. However, you've also continuously, even well before I came into your orbit, you've had annual goals.
Yes.
A specific one, if I may say, of actually introducing a new product or program each year.
Yeah.
And so that is your goal, which connects to your vision, but it also speaks to your strengths. Being creative, it also speaks to your vision. There's so many layers here. And so the reason why I say this is because whether you're a business leader, whether you are a stay-at-home mom who maybe is considering coaching, or even if you're an internal coach or a coach who does one-on-one and is dipping your toe into group and team, the point is we do need to have goals. And as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, they actually are very, very important to us. And I wanted to spotlight how your vision has come to life, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes intentionality. It also takes like persistence.
Yeah.
You have your feet on the fire. Like you are, like even in this book marathon, we're just talking, but you're also got 2 decks on the go. That is who you are. And you thrive in that space. And so I say that to the listeners to go, like this is the example of Jen. I'm in the space of, as you, experiential education. I'm dipping my toe in the experience of retreats. Whether it'll go or not remains to be seen, but I'm trying to introduce new products. Even I introduced a product of organization group coaching with a different spin, because my bigger purpose is living by inspiring others to fly. And part of my journey to fly was learning Italian in Italy, learning Spanish in Costa Rica, even learning English when I went to school. So that has been a part of my journey. And so I've been trying to do some of that in a group coaching realm in Italy, going into organizations and helping people. And so my point is we do need to have goals. And like you said, it's the doing, but it's also the being. Who are we? What is going to actually bring me joy? What is going to generate that impact that is going to have me have joy, peace, and whether you associate with the word legacy or not, it all comes down to goals. And I'm going to say this as I pivot to today's conversation around goals, but in the coaching many, that conversation of goals is a bit dynamic. There's layers to that. And so for me, what I really want to focus on is supporting our listeners to kind of look at this realm of coaching many, or the conversation of many, and take into consideration things that might be new to you, or things that maybe you're doing and maybe you're taking for granted, or maybe things that you're doing and you need to reevaluate. Because you know what, there is in the coaching many conversation, goal setting is one of the 4 focus areas. It came out of the ICF survey in 2009. Keep me honest here, Jen.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And I think this is one of those shift areas, right? Often, and many of you probably have heard me speak multiple times, because I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding of what does it take to really help a collective group, whether it's a team or a group, move ahead. And a central part to this is goals. So yes, in one-on-one coaching, there is a lot of debate, and not every coaching model is embedded or entrenched in goal setting. But when we bring more than one person to the table, how do we help people focus? How do we help people connect with others and have some movement? Because in group coaching, for example, everyone's on their own pathway. Your goal might be to form better relationships, but my goal might be to actually take down the pace a little bit. That might be a goal, but it's a doing goal versus a being goal. And so if we were in a group together as business owners, we're still working with that meta goal of, I want to move my business ahead, but we have 2 very different ways to get there. So this is a really important piece for listeners to really be thinking about in a group coaching. How are you helping people get traction for their own individual vision, which vision translates into goals? And again, a goal may not be a doing, it may be a being goal.
Absolutely.
And so that is pretty significant because I have seen this, we have seen this
Yeah.
collectively as a profession over the years. What happens when there is too much diversity of goals in the room, in a group? Especially if that group is larger, it's much harder for people to get
Sure.
traction. And that's where you see things like people didn't show up. People like there were 20 people for this program. Well, is 20 a really good size? Well, actually, we know from practice and
Yeah.
from research, you want to be looking at a 6 to 8, right? Really to have that space of true connectivity where people can come, be vulnerable, share what's on their mind, and really make that transformational change under the waterline.
And I'm just
So,
going to share that.
yeah,
Like, we actually model this in our own programs. We cap our programs at 8.
yeah,
Why? Because we want to allow that intimacy. We want to be able to allow and still have some container for that diversity without it getting too broad, without it getting, I'm going to say, unmanageable. And so, as much as ICF says 15 or less, you as the group coach, especially like the work that I do with women who are in transition, personal transition, there's a lot of emotion. I don't go to the high end of it. I
yeah,
stay in that 6 to 8. So that is one of the things that you do need to think about. Absolutely. Is what are the needs of the group or the team
hmm,
in support of the team goals, and then the individual secondary. And in group coaching, where individuals coming with a common theme, but on an individual journey to allow those, I'm going to say, idiosyncrasies or dynamic that happens.
yeah, yeah. And you really raise a really important tension there, right? One of the things we talk a lot about is this tension of how much of the container is formed initially by the coach, right? And if you're doing public programming, this is where you're going to see a difference than if you're going into an organization where the groups are forming in a different way. But it's very challenging to go out into the world and saying, "Hey, I'm going to do a group coaching program." Well, for what? For who? And that's where the coach initially is going to set some frame, whether you consider it as a container, an umbrella. Like, this is a group coaching program for business owners who want to move their business forward. That's very different than this is a group coaching program for new parents who want to really get clear on how to find the balance between being a parent and retaining their identity. Or that's very different from I'm working, with a group of new leaders who are looking at building both personal and professional frameworks. So the coach is really needing to be clear, right? A lot of it comes down to your niche again or your focus areas. That does not, however, replace the individual group members' role in setting their own goals under that umbrella. And so we want to make that really clear because I think a lot of coaches hear it and it's like, oh, well, that's not coaching because the coach is setting the agenda. No, we are not setting the agenda, but we are setting the frame. If there is not enough cohesiveness, it's very hard for people to find that collaborative learning space. They will have a good conversation, but it may not be as powerful. And like we have said in other calls, it all depends, right? In this realm of
Yeah.
coaching, buddy, it all depends. But really
Yeah.
be for yourself, thinking through what's going to be of value to the people you serve, what is going to be enough to help people feel that they are connected and are not necessarily on the same path, but have enough in common that they can learn with and learn from each other, because that is integral to this whole process of coaching groups and teams.
And I must add, because a part of me even still goes, so for the perfectionists who are like, what? I don't know all this. Don't let this paralyze you, please. Okay. That's where that experimentation comes in. This is where you do keeping the group size smaller. We say this, coaching is not selling t-shirts. Right. It's, I remember learning that in like CTI when I was going, and we even say this in our own programs. Like, it's not, this is transformation. We're actually supporting a transformation. And so why do I say that? I drew a blank. However,
we're not selling t-shirts.
We're not selling t-shirts. And so it's part of that conversation, and allow yourself to experiment, allow yourself to bring people together and go, oh, you know what? In this first group, I realized that there's actually two separate groups that can be formed here. So I'm going to say this because I need to hear this sometimes myself, and maybe I need to hear it today is, you don't need to have all I's and T's crossed to actually start it, but you do need to have the structures. You do need to have the processes, which is what we actually offer and share in your first book, Effective Group Coach, and also in our introductory course of Group Coaching Essentials. Having said that, also there is bringing play back in. You need to be able to know where that tension is of what you need to be able to come and do. And then also how you can come and play and allow the group to also evolve. I had this in Italy, Jen, with this first time doing a group coaching program.
In Italian, right?
It's in English.
Okay, in English.
It was in English, but it was helping non-native English speakers develop their English conversation skills.
Love it. Love it. And let's go to this level, because we've talked a little bit about the high level, right? Like goals are something that's going to bring the group together. I could say, oh, I'm interested in this group or not, right? And from there, though, we're going to go to a deeper level of personal goals. So what are the goal frameworks you use? Because I think, as an ICF framework, we're very familiar with the SMART goals. As many of you would know, in my writing, I add an E on there to be for exciting, because motivation is a key process or part of the process of change. Do you happen to use any of the other goal frames? Like, we've got clear goals. That goes back to John Whitmore. Clear standing for concise, legal, environmental, or ethical. Attainable, and again, back to, I think, realistic or relevant is what he said for clear. I know as a mentor coach, I've also talked about pure goals. That's a whole other framework. We've got, what other ones are you aware of? I
actually lean on a lot of the one that you actually offer in our programs and is in the back of the book, which is really it's the structure. So we won't go there maybe quite yet. But I tend to go into the SMART goals. But what I want to say, I actually offer the SMART just because sometimes it's not known. But being in that balance of being and doing, sometimes it can't be a SMART goal. A lot of the people that come to me, they can't actually even articulate what the goal is because they're immersed in their stuff. And so sometimes the goal is, I just want to be comfortable in my own skin. I want to be able to be okay, feel like I can, go on with my life. And they don't know what that means. And that's the adventure. That's the exploration of what that is. So there's that balance of sometimes being the grounded labyrinth. I help people connect to that sensation in the body. What would be that sensation in the body? What would that experience be if you had peace, or whatever. So that way as we're evolving, we can connect back into that. So,
and I think that's a really important layer, right, of goal setting. Is it's not just about the doing, it is about the embodiment of this. It's about building new habits around practices. That's a big part of how do we create sustainable change. And so in your work with groups, right, there may be sort of tangent or tendril conversations around what are the habits you're building as you're taking action towards your goal or embodying your goal. So we want to really keep reinforcing this, because I think we have been in this era, remote work by its nature, first by default is results-based. Everything is results-based. It does not mean that it only has to be results-based. And if you listen to our last episode, it has to be about relationships and results. And so on the relational being area, how are we working and reminding our group members or our team members, well, what is that relational side of this goal? What does it require for you to be? How do you need to show up? And it's interesting, back to, what you sort of pointed to. I've just come out of the Muskoka Novel Marathon this year. And rather than picking up and writing a whole new book, which would have been really easy, I've got pieces that have been in process for a few years. One being the whole body of work of the superpowers, started 2 summers ago with the launch of the quiz, now taken by thousands. And it's having an impact on conversation. So I received a really interesting invite a few weeks ago from EMCC to come back and speak probably for the 5th or 6th year at their global summit, which happens every November. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? Group coaching, team coaching? He said, no, we want you to come and talk about the superpowers, because it was so interesting how you've brought that now for a few years. And we want to hear about your research. And so thinking about that really allowed me this past weekend to double down on one of my goals. How do we continue to offer elements, programs, services, supports to coaches at different price points, right? Many of you have joined us at, $1,000 program. Maybe you've joined us for, a 3-month mentor coaching. But what if you want something smaller? How do you have that coach in your pocket? And that's where these card decks are coming up. That's been a goal for me. In starting this business, the ripple effect was not just about training coaches. It was actually about how do we get coaching out to the masses? And scaling in the world of coaching is not scaling in the world itself. And I was so reminded of that this weekend in working with writers, right? We had one person, we always have a bunch of creatives come in and support us. And someone wasn't available the last morning. And I said, you know what? I brought some things. I brought the dice, which I have here, our reconnecting workspaces dice. I had our conversation sparkers, and we had a beautiful 30-minute conversation, which again, how are we activating people to set their goals, even when they're in that process of almost being at the finish line? Because goal attainment is not a straight road. Our evolution as professionals, as humans, as parents, is often a squiggle, and we don't see that. So how do we also take it away from let's measure ourselves on a goal? In another frame, let's hold it as your vision. And what do you need to take that next step or that next series of steps, especially when you're exhausted, right? And in a 72-hour writing marathon, you see the whole process of change. You see the excitement, the honeymoon phase. People get into that creative angst by day 2. But how, and this was really so wonderful for me, being the person on the last morning, in that last haul or the last mile, as I call it in my work, how do you dig deep and find whatever you need, whether it's the guts, whether it's the 50th wind to get over the finish line? And we need a boost. And the people who join me, they found the boost in what we did together. And that's the beauty of this work. How do we help people in that final line?
I don't know this to be true. I'm going to take the liberty, if I may, because it's not like we don't script these recordings. We know the topic and we come and we just, what wants to come through comes through. But when you were sharing, part of me was like, let's think about the whole, even the quiz, right? So we've got the quiz, we created a program. Now we're creating a deck, right? So these are products. We have goals to bring products for all price points. But if you think about it, I actually see this also to be a deeper goal, that these things are the outputs of. And that deeper, which fits to the whole vision of Potentials Realized, is really supporting coaches in the development of their profession, but also of themselves. And the whole superpower is designed to activate your superpower, your strength, your genius. And so the goal, what I'm going to take the liberty to say, is that you want to continue to empower people in the conversation, many, or even on the one-on-one for that matter, to really deepen their connection to who they are, so they can be more effective out there. These products that are being introduced are magnificent, and yes, they check the box off on different price points, but ultimately the goal connects to your vision. And I'm hearing it to be really allowing coaches to have a deeper embodiment of who they are and their strengths, so they can have a ripple effect. And that's how we at Potentials Realized will hit our 5 million, because as we support the ripple of coaches, then they get to have that bigger ripple. And so I say that for the listeners. Even I reflect that on myself and what I'm doing and how does that fit for me. But this is where there is a moment of, we're all busy. We can all fill a day, but are the things that you're doing actually supporting your vision, but your deeper goals? Your
Yes.
deeper goals, whether you're introducing a group coaching program, a new product, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And for me, it's always, and that's why Potentials Realize and I pair beautifully, is I live by inspiring others to fly. That's my language.
Inspiration. There's that
Inspiration.
motivational piece,
For me,
right?
it's all inspiration. If I'm not inspiring, if I'm not walking my walk, if
Yes.
I'm not being true and authentic to the work that I'm doing. So I sat here with the group is my superpower, my strength was compassion.
Yeah.
Why? Because I've walked their walk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I invite all of you, our listeners and ourselves, to really take a moment to go deeper to, like, how does this thing, this item, this to-do list, what goal does that connect to? Whether it be as a mother, a coach, a business leader, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, because it is powerful. And Jen, can I pivot the conversation? Because I think this is something that I would like to bring up in the conversation of when we're having conversations of many. And I'll speak to it more from the group coaching standpoint, is this whole thing of when we're creating programs, like whose goals, whose goals. And
Your
so,
clients' goals, right? Number one. So what do
yeah,
you want to say about that? Because I think this is one of the biggest questions we get. Oh, isn't the coach now directing the goals? No, 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 no. This is where the one-page plan comes in. We are bringing the container. What do you want to say about the goals?
yeah. What I wanted to add is it absolutely is the client's goals, and similar to core competency, creating establishing and maintaining the agreements. How are we setting up the program? Right.
Yeah.
Again, like you said earlier, it's like there is that frame. So people know that this program is for them.
Yes.
But within the context of this program is for me. Now, as the coach, I need to allow participants to come in and define what that means to each of them. And I'm going to say this, that's a growth edge, especially if you've been doing, I'm going to say this, whether you've been doing facilitation or training, that dynamic is different in the group coaching conversation.
Yeah.
So hip hooray, because you've got some leeway, some strength in group dynamics, but this is your growth edge. And in some ways, people who are newer in group coaching actually have an advantage because they're not having to unlearn some of this stuff, because in group coaching, I'll speak to group coaching only, it is about their goals.
Yes.
And how I stand as the group coach, how I stand and support the meta arc, but what are the things I'm doing to support each individual to fulfill their own journey map, to fulfill their goals, whether it be a 6-week program, a 6-month program, whatever. Because it is, goals are goals, but in a coaching or in a conversation of many, that dynamic changes. And when we as group coaches or business leaders for that matter, come in with our agenda and it has to look this way, I'm going to say you're losing your presence and you're losing where the magic and the transformation can actually be transformative for each participant in the room.
Yeah. And the ultimate question is, if someone, and it could be the coach or it could be the sponsor, is setting the goal, that is not really coaching, right? Really true coaching is when we're bringing people together saying, what do you want to focus on today? And that, as I like to call it, the bookends in my writing, right? It's the bookends. How are we starting every call, checking in, seeing what progress people are making? What are the quick wins? What are the obstacles that are showing up? Where do people want to go today? And what will success look like at the end of our time together? Whether that's 45 minutes, whether that's 60 minutes, whether we're holding it as, we're putting a monthly focus on this. So as coaches, really be having, dialogue with your folks. Dialogue comes from dialogus. It's a two-way conversation. This is not something you are saying, this is the way. You are co-creating with your clients. Same thing in a team, right? Even more so in a team. The team has got to set the goals. And this is where an assessment may come in to be really valuable in providing that data set to a team so they can really then make the decision, where do we need to begin? And the coach's role is, what is the team not able to do by themselves? How do you add value to that conversation? And so goals are everywhere in the realm of coaching many. And while not every coaching model may be goal centric, I would assert that as soon as you have more than one person in a room, to have those pathways where people can get traction, where people can link their motivation, as you said, a big part of that is through the goal process, which is owned by the client. So
I want to just reinforce something. I'm going to say something that's worth reinforcing. You said it already, but it's worth so there's program goals and then there's session goals. And if we think about the ICF core competencies, coaching is coaching is coaching. And so as we set up the session, what do you want to focus on today? What success look like? And what's important about this? And allowing, if you've got 5 people in the circle with you, it's 5 different answers, and your role is to support each 5 to get where they need to get for themselves in the topic of the session.
Perfect. For a group, that is the heart of it, right? And the pace of each person may be different. The way they want to be supported is going to be different. The amount of deep dive that I get to take versus my collaborative learning. This is what makes it so interesting, right?
Exciting. I love it. I love it.
But it is scary to what you said. I think this is where people who might have come from the training sort of bent. And again, I came into coaching having trained for 20 years. I had to let that go, right? In coaching, we need to be ready and on our toes for whatever shows up. If you ever are showing up in a group coaching conversation and you're not on your toes, that's an opportunity to revisit and look at, what are you really doing? Are you showing up in coach stance? Because we've got to be curious. We don't know where this conversation is going to go. We've got to be intentional and check our intentions as well. Is this my show or is this a group's process?
Yes. Yeah. It's intention. It's listening. Are you actually listening? Are you trusting? My growth in 10 years of coaching was I had no intuition. I was so logic, but building that intuition, that's where the commitment as the coach is to continue their development. We have a responsibility to know where we are strong. And it doesn't mean that we leave those behind, but as in the superpower program, beautifully illustrated, I am a strong spiral lighthouse and grounded labyrinth, but that program helped me to really get clear. Okay, but I need, then if it's not native to me to be that tool master, then that's where my work is. That's where my development is. Not because of anything, but so that way I can show up for what wants to be explored. So my confidence and self-assurance is stronger for what wants to be explored. And to me, that's the fun of it. That's what I love about groups. And it takes intentionality. It takes focus, and it takes you continuing and me continuing and the listeners continuing to sharpen our saw.
You got it. And build the range. The range is everything.
Build that range.
And that is, as you've said it, Evana, it's not about doubling down in your 1 or 2 strengths. It's about growing a range. We've got to bring all 5 superpowers to the table, because chances are in that group, everyone needs something different from us. So either we co-coach, right? We bring another collaborator in, which is best practice for team coaching, or we really look at doubling down on our range. And that is at the heart of the Activate program. That is beyond the essentials. And this is what I really also want to be, hopefully listeners are open to hearing this, because your development does not stop. I think there is this notion of I've got my ACTC. That's all I need to do. No, you need to keep on growing. You need to keep exploring what is possible and what is feasible. So with your own series of work, my inquiry for today is, what is the role of goals in the world of conversation with your clients? Not in your world, but in the world of your clients. That's part 1. Part 2, how are you linking it beyond just a goal? How is it being linked to vision? How is it something we embody? How is it something we return to and revisit and evaluate? We didn't even touch on evaluation of goals.
Right.
there's lots of layers of this. And so what are you doing to really look at the many layers of goals? And how are you holding space for people to revisit that on a regular basis? It's not just, oh, we're going to talk about it at the end. Is there a midpoint review? Is there something you do every session? What I do, and again, to really be clear, and you've probably read me talk about this, one, everyone gets a copy of the one-page plan between session 1 and 2. Their field work is to come back, call number 2 with those goals, top 3 to 5 goals written down so they can share it, not just with me, but with others. Because goal setting in a group setting is not just about the coach. It's about everyone. And that goes to
that group ownership, right? Like it's not, you said it earlier, it's not the coach show. It's the group. And so that one-page plan allows creating structures, allows the group to continue to build that trust, build that safety, build that connection, even through that structure. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were on a
no, but that's good. And what I'm always on a roll. Here's what it also takes you to is how is the group going to keep a focus on that? And I think this is where we see tremendous diversity from. I've gone back with one group this month actually to our Conversation Sparker Zone, which we use on Mighty Networks. Really interesting to revisit that after 16 months of not using it. I know many of the groups that you support love the What's Up. Other groups still might be on Facebook. Other groups are like, I don't want any more. Just give me like the stuff on email and we'll talk about it in our group time. So this is not just a one layered. And that's what we really hope to do in this entire series of podcasts, is really get you thinking in sometimes an uncomfortable way about what am I holding as the golden truth? Is there truly a golden truth? Or is there a need to revisit some of the way that I do my work in service of the people that I serve? And that's where the feedback mechanism becomes invaluable as well. So for another day, we'll talk about evaluation, but I don't think a conversation on goals would be complete. So for more on this, again, like I've written entire books. Maybe you have a copy of Coaching Business Builder or Plan, Do, Track. Those are our workbook planners, and you can check the one-page plan out at the back of it. Reconnecting Workspaces has a whole chapter on goals, goal setting, vision, and of course, effective virtual conversations, because in the virtual space, goals need to be even tighter than in the physical space. So, Evana, final thoughts, comments? We could go on and do a part 2. Maybe we will in season 2. But for now, anything final that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I'm going to just add to your earlier evaluate and evolve. To me, I think there's also, as a coach, especially one layer of evolution is going into the coaching many conversation. But what is your goal plan? What is your one-page plan to support your own evolution? Like I said, when I came into coaching, I had zero intuition. That was something that I put intentionality on and goals.
And now
I've taken somatic. I've taken courses to develop that. Because it's going to support me as a human, as a partner, but also as a coach. So that's my thought to add on to you is, where do goals fit, and what are the commitments you're taking to support your own evolution and growth to be an impactful leader, coach, parent, sibling, mother, father?
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So as always, we invite you to share your thoughts. Definitely comment if you're watching this on YouTube. Maybe, like it, share this within your podcast, because I think this is an area that is a little contested, right? Some coaches would assert goals don't play a role, maybe in one-on-one, but in a group, certainly we need to really have this as a traction area. In a team, teams are going to measure themselves according to goals, and whether that is one collaborative goal or a series of collaborative goals, or even individual goals that feed into a bigger work plan, because as we know, teams are measured on results and goals are part of that process. Don't lose sight of the vision, and we'll be doing future sessions on vision, because we know here at Potential Realize this is a really important part of our clients' world. So until later, Evana, be well, enjoy. Looks like you're enjoying your summer. And
I am.
We'll see you soon for another episode. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Bye.
Bye.